So, well, Frank, let's hear a little bit quick background how you kind of how you ended up with and how you stumbled into give us a little background on how you ended up discovering the whole awe system, and then we'll talk about
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
specifically.
And in fact, I have to take us even back further than Walmart. So when I was it's amazing. One of the things I love to still talk to college students. And I said, it's amazing what you can accomplish when you have no idea what it's going to take. And, you're kind of looking back and I'm like, wow, all of these experiences have kind of it's kind of like going on CNN and then coming on your show. It's all set me up for this kind of success,
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
And so when people ask about, kind of public speaking, how I got there, I'm like, okay, so I reflected. So in undergraduate, went to University of California, Riverside. Undergraduate, I did stand-up comedy. And
Nice.
you're doing stand-up comedy, you don't have a script, it's a high pressure environment. And then when I went to graduate school, I got involved with the church down there in Houston and was a volunteer youth worker. Well, you're having to develop talks, for Wednesday and Sunday, and you're doing that year round. So I think that. Third is then I become a professor. And I'd already had all that kind of experience speaking, but I'd never had any formal training or anything like that. Because in grad school, it's kind of horrifying to think about. You get your doctorate, you come out, you hopefully get a teaching job, but you've never taught or barely have ever taught, maybe as a TA, because the way you get your PhD is not by teaching, but by doing research. But I've always kind of liked teaching. And so to fast forward, I knew I had a message that would resonate with audiences bigger than college, outside of college students, not bigger, outside of college students. But the only thing I ever wrote was like articles and parts of books that like 4 people in the world would read. And so I reached out to the editor at Huffington Post just through a series of connections. And they invited me to come on and start, writing for the Huffington Post. Had a really great opportunity to launch the first kind of like wellness app. It was really web-based. It wasn't an app. Yeah. With Arianna Huffington and other kind of whatever gurus, and started getting invitations to speak. So I was still a professor and got invited to give a keynote speech at Walmart. And so a bunch of executives are in the audience. I don't even know what Walmart is. When you're here in Northwest Arkansas and you're like literally in an ivory tower. My office was in a cathedral of, granite or whatever, limestone. I decided it was like a hometown, hometown employer. I had no idea that Fortune 2.1 million associates this year, $1 trillion in valuation. I'm like, oh, okay. I didn't know any of that. So I go give this keynote speech. A lot of leaders were in the audience. I guess I did a reasonably good job. I was recruited. I came on about 6 months later and ran a number of talent initiatives across the globe. So just constantly honing your craft. And then I come out of there, help I kind of build a leadership development practice within a consulting firm and in front of tons of audiences. And just my reputation just kind of spread, getting invited to speak at events and lead executive offsites and all that kind of stuff. And like I mentioned at the outset of the show, one of the most frequent questions I get, besides the content, hopefully the content matters to the audiences, is, man, how do you become a really good public speaker? And I don't really know if I'm a great public speaker. I think I'm reasonably entertaining at times, and I'm authentic, and I have a point of view. And I think it's important to have a point of view. Mm-hmm. Nobody wants to just hear motivational babble. That's just boring. And so it forced me, as I said, I was out in Silicon Valley giving a talk, and it was about a year ago. This is like the final catalyst. And this woman came up to me afterwards and said, "Man, I want to be able to speak like that." So it really caused me to reflect. And I'm like, how do I design talks? I mean, there's a lot of delivery vendors out there, but there's not many that talk about how to design a talk. And it dawned on me, every single talk that I designed whether it's rolling out Workday in a corporate setting, yes, I was responsible for that, or doing a keynote speech. Every talk that I design is designed in such a way as to elicit wonder in the minds of the audience, meaning causes the audience to think about the world in a completely new way and in an expansive way. Because we know from neuroscience that our brains are prediction machines, right? You know it. I mean, we do the same thing. We gravitate toward the same things on a menu, and we see the world, but not, I don't know if you want to nerd out on this, but we start developing these schemas, these schematic representations. Those are shortcuts for making decisions. Because just imagine if to make a decision on what we're going to drink, you had to do like a strategic plan for it every time. I mean, you'd be exhausted.
Yeah,
and right. Schemas serve us really well, right? Coffee on in the morning, we don't even think about it. But you give a talk that relies upon schema, and I'm going to be a little controversial here. Every time I hear the phrase psychological safety or emotional intelligence, all of those things are super important conceptually, but a little piece of me dies because in far too many communicators just kind of give a nod to it without really explaining explicitly what one is, what each of those are, for an example. And I give talks on both of those topics, but I always try to do so in a way that is fresh and innovative and challenges people's assumptions. And so that's what kind of started the genesis of going, hey, what are the actual steps? And I'm not going to go through it I don't think on this podcast, but there's actually 9 steps to the AWE method. But AWE stands for attention. Attention causes us to stop. Our brains are like monkey machines, right? We're going. And so grabbing an audience attention early on causes them to stop and go, hey, I want to listen. And then W stands for wonder. And that's injecting that awe element. And I'll give you an example of when I've experienced awe in the past. It's that moment where you go, wow, my brain is blown. The world as I thought it operated doesn't operate that way. I don't know if you all have been to the Grand Canyon, but the first time you see the Grand Canyon, you know what happens. You're like, almost get a little sick because when you're standing on, the South Rim, and you're looking down and around, you're like, oh my gosh, I am little bitty as we see. And this is a much larger world. And so one of the interesting things about if we can elicit awe through our communication, we know that what the research shows, it actually leads to pro-social behavior because it forces us to take our attention off ourselves and onto other people. And so I'll give you a quintessential awe experience from my own life. I was supporting Walmart China, Shenzhen, and the very first trip I went there, I had a colleague who was in corporate affairs and he managed or led food safety in China, okay? He's from Arkansas, University of Arkansas grad, tall, white guy, bald head. You get the picture, super smart.
Yeah.
Former State Department, and fluent in Mandarin, but I'd never heard him speak Mandarin. So when I transit through Hong Kong and he meets me there just to try to ease all of the stress of going into mainland China, we get over the border, and so we go to a restaurant, and he orders food from this Chinese restaurant in flawless Mandarin. Talk about mind being blown. I'm hearing this white guy from Arkansas flawless Mandarin coming out of his mouth. That's an awe experience.
Sure. Yeah.
Because the world is just turned. It's like if you have a dog and it wakes up in the morning and starts speaking English, you'd be like, what? That's not the way the world works.
Yeah. And
so highly effective talks are, I Have a Dream. You look at Simon Sinek's, the Why. All of those cause the audience to go, whoa, that's not, wow. Okay, so this is a way to look at the world in a whole new way, right? And
we talk about, it's called pattern. We talk about pattern interruption, like people just kind of walking around, as you said, doing the same thing, because people, it's like
we're like water. We flow
Yep.
the path of least resistance. We get in our comfort zone and we do the same thing. We fall into the same patterns. So
Right.
I think it's good. We sometimes you have that pattern interruption that kind of interrupts the flow, so to speak, breaks us out of that coma.
That's right. Yeah. And it kind of, not to be too informal on it, but it actually helps us hit a reset button. Because if you think about, so let's think about this through the lens of mindfulness, right? Mindfulness or mindlessness, that can be useful. Like, again, I'm looking at my coffee, my funnel out there. I've been doing the same coffee routine for 25 years. If I had to devote a bunch of cognitive energy every morning to do that, it would be exhausting. Right. So that's mindless. But for really important things in our life, we want to adopt a more mindful approach where we can be fully present in the moment without judgment, with agency, making conscious choices. And so when we see something in a new way, it kind of hits that reset button, and it'll start building new neural pathways. I mean, another example is I've spent a lot of time in India supporting the Indian tech business over there for Walmart. And I was supporting kind of back end for optical. I've never really thought about glasses or anything. And just sitting there listening to them, all of a sudden, I saw glasses everywhere because of the reticulating activation system in the back of our mind, or the back of our brain. And so that's right, to your point, when we're able to interrupt patterns, and we're not saying patterns are bad, but when we're able to interrupt patterns, that's when learning and that's when behavior transformation can occur. And so
you're kind of waking people up from their kind of stupor that they're in.
That's right. I mean, it's kind of the Sam Harris, right? Waking up.
Yeah.
And that's what the engagement. So whenever I design a talk, I always design it in a way that makes people have to choose at the end whether they're going to do something different or not do something different. But they no longer have a choice to ignore it. And that's what I call engagement. Because it's ultimately, if we want to change our lives for the better, we actually have to change our lives for the better. And so over the last number of years, I've become really interested in the understanding around agency, because so many times we don't think we have agency, but we do have agency. And it's not self-centeredness, it's not selfishness, but it's being the CEO of our own lives. And I coach leaders a lot to assemble your personal board of directors, because you actually can make choices. And so that's at a 30,000 foot view, that's how I design every single talk. And I coach people on how to do that. Communicating in that way is incredibly difficult, and it takes an enormous amount of practice. And so not a lot of people get the kind of practice that I did in youth ministry and then stand up and then being a professor. So I've partnered, not to make a plug, but I partner with Ivy Field Agents, part of Ivy Talent. And we're creating field agents with my voice. The AH method is loaded onto it with a bunch of other literature and research and everything. And we're going to deploy it. We're in the second beta phase right now of it. And so you would be able to get this field agent, this app, it's on your phone, and you can collaborate with it to develop a talk. It's trained to coach you on how to do that. And then my delivery methodology I call land, and I'll tell you why, is, you got to land the plane, but is then you can deliver your talk, and the app, right now we're calling it Mini Frank. We're going to try to come up with a different name, and we'll give you feedback on how well you've done. So people can have that in their pocket. So when you're called upon to give a toast, at your best man's wedding, you can go, how do I give this toast?
Yeah, that's cool. Wow.
That is cool.
That's very cool. So
it's very helpful.
You said AWE stands for attention, wonder, and engagement.
Yep.
Can you give us like one or two examples, or maybe not even examples, but like, how do you start looking for attention? Like what, from I want to get like how the sausage is made a little bit, and be like, how do you actually know what to look for?
To
get attention.
So now we will go deep. Now I'll kind of start going through some of the kind of examples, from a really pedantic, maybe boring corporate one to a more like maybe motivational or keynote-y kind of thing. So the first thing is you've got to, first off, oftentimes people will be you'll be like, hey, Sean, I want, we've got this men's group, this small business group. I want you to come and speak to them. First thing you need to know is who is your audience, or what are their relative pain points. Okay. So you've got to do research on the front end. Otherwise they're not going to, you can be over here going like this, but they're not going to be paying attention to you.
Yeah.
And then from there, and oftentimes you'll back into it, but so are you familiar with agile methodology?
I'm not.
Okay, I always hate asking questions where people have to go, no, I've not heard that. So agile methodology is a way to roll out products in increments. So in the old days with product management, you build the whole car and then go, hey, buy it. Agile says, let's develop a hypothesis, roll out a minimal viable product, get feedback based upon that, and then tweak it. And so developing a talk, I use kind of an agile methodology, meaning I start with a hypothesis at the beginning, whatever that hypothesis is. And that hypothesis is almost always, and then I'll break it down for you, it's almost always around so here's my hypothesis. So let's say Workday. Here's a corporate audience. I need to go and talk to them about rolling out this new corporate process, taking them from their old HR to now Workday. My hypothesis is that in doing so, it's going to help them achieve their objectives more quickly, bring people on more easily. It's going to make their life easier. That's my hypothesis. The third step, though, is what are some assumptions that your audience has that are going to make them resistant to that message?
Yeah.
So you think about it as a corporate guys, you're like, oh my gosh, it's another freaking HR nightmare. Another process, it's going to give me pain.
Yeah.
And from there, you develop the talk that actually flips it on its head. This is where let's keep in mind, there are different versions of wonder. Okay. I'm not going to go, oh my gosh, Workday is so wondrous, but it flips it on its head, and you're able to see Workday or whatever process in a brand new way. So I'll give you another example. A real non-corporate example. I have launched another program. And again, we're in the late stage beta, because one of the questions I frequently get asked by leaders here in Northwest Arkansas and elsewhere, they've gotten their 40s, 50s, they're, senior director, vice president, or above that. They've got the house, they've got the, they've got the cars, they've got the boats, they've got the house at the lake. But it's like, they're like, but I just feel like I don't have any purpose. Like something is missing. And so we are beset upon with this, hey, find your purpose. That's actually totally incorrect. We don't find purpose. We create purpose. We choose purpose based upon what life in that moment is asking of us, largely based upon logotherapy, Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. And so when I'm thinking about it, hey, we're going to develop this workshop, there's a lot of people that are going to come in a lot of despair because they're like, or feel like they're rudderless. Mm-hmm. My hypothesis is every single one of us can live a life of purpose, whether it's in a concentration camp like Viktor Frankl, whether it's in the face of a diagnosis, whether it's in a job that is way below your level, or whether you've been displaced, and everywhere in between. You can choose to live a purposeful life, because why? We all have agency. So the hypothesis and the awe is we don't choose purpose. We don't find purpose. We create purpose. And that's a whole new way of thinking about it for other people. I'll give you another example. I'm writing an article right now on the imposter syndrome. We all know what imposter syndrome is.
Yes.
I'm flipping it on its head, largely based upon the work of he's passed away now, but of a Franciscan monk. I think it was Franciscan. And the imposter, and it was really meaningful to me, the imposter, we know what the imposter syndrome is. Hey, fake it till you make it. You know, I don't feel like I'm adequate, but there's actually a flip side of that. Whereas we bring into our adult life all of our inadequacies and pain and woundedness from being a kid. And in order to run away with that, we create a persona that sits on our shoulder. And so we go into the corporate world, or we go into anywhere, and you're scanning the environment going, who do I need to be in order to be successful? And that becomes what is called the imposter. It's not you. And so now all of a sudden I'm interacting with not your authentic self, but your imposter self, your false self. You don't know who you are. And so this article, the hook is, I'm tentatively titling it, you know, the other imposter syndrome nobody ever talks about. Again, that's what brings people in.
Right. So that's the attention to, hey, what's this other thing? I've heard of the imposter syndrome, but I haven't heard of the other.
And you're like, I want to learn more about that.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
I hear that more and more in the corporate world.
Yep.
It seems like in the last 5 years, I've seen more and more articles on imposter syndrome. Like, these are people that are CEOs or people that are executives that have gone to the highest level, and they're like, they don't feel like they belong there, or they're wondering, you know, it's like they're second guessing, you know, why they're in the position they're in.
And so a more healthy way to approach that, that's right. So from that imposter syndrome, and I see this all the time, is particularly with those that are climbing the ladder, is they gravitate to the other imposter syndrome. They start acting the role, but they're really, like C.S. Lewis talked about, men without chest. They really don't have a core. And so you have conversations with them and it's almost vapid. You know, they use acronyms, they use all the insider secret handshake kind of stuff, say, hey, I'm in the club and you're not in the club. Meanwhile, you're like, dude, I just want to have a conversation with another human being.
Right.
And so, you know, from a therapeutic perspective, I lived, ate, and slept the original type of imposter syndrome. Because I grew up in a family that says never think more highly of you than yourself, than you should. I was kicked out of elementary school. I was told by teachers I'll never amount to anything. So literally every step of the way, I'm like, wait.
You're trying to prove people.
Yeah. Or it was more like, no, I've always just followed my bliss. I just do what I like.
Right.
But what kind of threw me off is I remember walking across stage, getting my doctorate, going, golly, they've lowered standards. That's not self-deprecating. That's true.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, you know, getting a tenure track university position is kind of like winning the lottery. And all of a sudden I'm like, man, this must not be as good of a school as they said they are. And then going to Walmart, you know, and so, you know, what I encourage leaders to think about, or anybody, is, hey, we all have moments where we don't think we're up to the task. And you know what it means? It just means you're human. So why don't we just build a healthy relationship with those thoughts and not try to control them, avoid them, or anything else? Just watch them like a car going up and down in front of your house. You don't have to jump into the car. You can just acknowledge its reality. That it's there.
Well, you said you did some time in stand-up comedy. That'll, you know, that'll put you in place real quick, right? I mean, that'll, you know,
100%.
You'll start to buy into some of that. Oh, well, I don't belong here, or you know, because you get some immediate response there. Well, I mean, what was that like? How long did you do that, and what was the?
Yeah, it was kind of fun. I don't know. Honestly, I don't remember how I got into it. But I ended up doing some kind of a thing at the university. And again, it's kind of that, my daughter is 18 years old, is not planning on going to college right away. And she's like, but Dad, look at you. I'm like, do not use me as an example. I just kind of lucked my way through kind of some of these things. So I got into it, and then we would leave. We had a little box on the door of the dorm room, and people on the floor would come in and put suggestions for jokes. And then me and one of my friends, we'd write up the jokes, and then I'd deliver it. And then was on a radio show and got noticed and got invited to clubs in LA, and kind of the rest is history. Like a couple of years just during undergrad, throughout Riverside, San Bernardino, LA. And I never had a bad experience, which is somebody on a podcast asked, did you ever have hecklers? And I'm sure I did, but I don't remember anything super traumatic.
Sure.
And I mean, it was a different world back then too, not to get political. I just won't, but you could push the boundaries. Now there's going to be somebody who's going to get hurt.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, it takes a lot of guts to do stand. I did one set. I went through a little course, same thing when I was living in Knoxville, went at University of Tennessee, like the night adult education classes that they do.
Yep.
And I did a stand up, and it was cool learning how to write, that there was a process to write talk about a moment of wonder or awe. Like,
and you just nailed it. That is exactly how to understand a joke.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I had a series of jokes. So you all are a little younger than me, but Sam Kinison was a very influential comedian in my life. And so
I remember him.
Only thing about him, those are the kind of jokes.
Yeah.
And he was a master.
Did you scream as well?
No, I didn't scream. He was a master at flipping the world upside down.
Yes.
His most iconic joke about, world hunger. You're like, I did not see where that's coming.
Oh man. Yeah.
Or you even think about, from a cinema perspective, Pulp Fiction. That was a mind-bending and genre change that changed cinema, because you're like, every single scene, you're like, this is even more insane than the last one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think, obviously, we don't develop keynotes on those kinds of subjects, but it's that same kind of thing. Great example. One of my former professional relationships, now a friend, her name's Wai-Fung Thompson, and she's the chief human resource officer for ITG Brands, which makes like Winston and Backwoods.
Mm-hmm.
And so I invited her to come out. I sit on a board, a women's empowerment board, nonprofit board, and we had our big, a big conference. And the reason why I'm telling this story is I don't use notes. I don't use anything. She read from her thing, and it was an awe experience. So here's this woman that's incredibly successful.
Mm-hmm.
She comes from China, was beaten as a kid because she was considered dumb, goes to the UK, gets accepted to Cambridge, almost gets kicked out of Cambridge, gets arrested on a ski slope, is banished from Belgium, and she just keeps building up all of these layers, and the audience is just like at 8 o'clock in the morning going, holy crap.
Wow. And you said she was reading this whole thing?
She read the whole thing. It was, yeah. And
it was a good story. It was
an amazing story. So for your listeners or your audience, make it workable for you.
Mm-hmm.
If you need to use some notes, that's okay. But no, she practiced a lot. And the reason why she, this is even a more compelling story. The reason why she was seen as slow is she ended up in her 20s finding out she had dyslexia. And so that to me is an awe experience. Here's somebody that we would consider neurodiverse going on to become, the head of a Fortune 150 company. From an HR perspective. So if we have our eyes open, we can see wonder and awe everywhere. Mm-hmm. And I think developing a talk like this is simple, but it is not easy, because it means you've got to be curious. It means we have to show up to life recognizing we don't have all the answers and that all of us get to learn stuff. I just turned 60 and I have a PhD. And I'm recognizing my fields, and I'm increasingly going, boy, I barely know anything. And it's not self-deprecation. It's just like, dude, the world's a big place, Yeah, the
more you look, the more you see, and the more you realize you don't see much.
I learn so much from Gen Zers all the time. I'm just in awe of their resilience and their creativity and, all of that. It's just like, wow.
It takes some vulnerability to.
And I think that too.
Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you've got to allow yourself to be vulnerable. I think this day and age for people, you know, I hate to use the term authentic because it's so, it's so,
Yep.
I feel
That's the
like it's
problem with any
overused.
word these days.
And that's what
All words just get overused these days.
Overused, yeah.
So
and
fast.
But
oh, I love that. No, go. Sorry.
But but I feel like the more open and vulnerable you make yourself, the more interesting. I think that's what people want. It's just real. They want realness. I mean, they want like the grime, the grit.
Yeah.
They don't want the polished, I don't think,
They want
to,
I mean, honestly, people want to know that it sucked for you going through what you went through to get to where you went. That's what they want to know.
Yeah. Totally.
They don't want to know it was easy.
No.
Yeah. And I think,
yeah.
I think, I probably say that too much, but I want to be careful of not being assertive, but you're exactly correct. One of the other things, and I think having my educational background, and my very first career, I was a Los Angeles County paramedic. Kind of having that experience, I think has made me quite empathetic and understanding kind of if I can call it the human condition. So I just kind of understand how humans work.
Yeah,
I should. It's my job. And so as I'm thinking about developing a talk, I always am going to try to put myself in the shoes of the audience. What do they want to leave? What do they want to experience today? And what do they want to leave with? And what can I do to help improve their life? So whether it's, I've given talks to 50 and 5,000. Regardless of the audience size, from a delivery perspective, you're still having a conversation. You're not teaching them. You're sharing a moment you're engaged in a moment of a shared experience. And I think that goes, Jonathan, to your point around authenticity. I have certainly received that feedback. This is what you see is what you get. And nobody will argue against my credentials or anything like that. And I think that does put me in a position to be especially authentic and go, dude, like the most transformative moment of my life was getting divorced. I'm like, as I said, I never want to be that person again. The moment you talk like that, like I don't have anything to hide.
Yeah.
Right. And if people want to make fun of you, then okay.
Yeah. Well, you got to expect that. I mean, if you're going to put yourself out there, that's just, that comes with the territory, right? I mean, so.
Yeah. And that's why having a point of view is really scary.
Yeah.
But if you don't have a point of view, you live what kind of a life is that?
When you say point of view, Frank, when you say point of view, how would you put a little bit of a wrapper around that or a definition around what you would consider a point of view?
Yeah. So I'll go back to the example of purpose and again, this is controversial for a subset of the population, is each one of us has an opportunity to live a rich and meaningful life when we make choices that are aligned with what is most important to us, sometimes called values. All right. What that means is we don't have to look to an external source of validation or salvation. So now you know where I'm getting into risky territory.
Right. Yeah.
And so my point of view is you have what's inside, you have everything you need inside of you in order to live a rich and meaningful life. Now, does that mean that we don't do it alone? We're better together, but you can actually determine the direction of your life. And that doesn't mean forever, because I have a choice right now to do this podcast. I could get in my car to go to the climbing gym, get hit, Lord, hope not, pass away. And it's like, I've still lived a rich and meaningful life. We're so often waiting for something to come afterwards, whether it's the afterlife, whether it's when I get married, whether it's when I get a job. And so I'm really on a mission at this stage of my life to help people recognize that wherever you find yourself, you can truly live rich and meaningful life. Why? By keeping your eyes open and going, I'm at this place in my life. What is life around me asking of me that nobody else can do? And then I'm going to make a choice to deliver on that. And that becomes my purpose. And that purpose will change as you go through. My purpose years ago was very different than it is now because I have an 18-year-old. But what life was asking of us, one of the reasons why I got divorced, because I wasn't a very good dad, was, cleaning diapers. That's your purpose.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I was just gonna say,
my point of view is stop waiting for purpose to be given to you or discovered because it's not discovered.
Yeah, and I think purpose has this this weight to it that it's something big and like quote important. It is important, but not the way most people think of it. There's nothing more important you could be doing than helping take care of your own child and giving your wife 100%. A break and right. So, but it doesn't feel big. It feels. I would argue that probably your individual purpose, any given person, is more likely to be found in the mundane than the exciting.
Yep.
Absolutely. There's a quote by I always remember a quote by G.K. Chesterton that says, "There's nothing more extraordinary than an ordinary man and his ordinary wife and their ordinary children." It's like
yeah. And that's where I go back to that imposter syndrome so I talk about the difference between striving and seeking. I think most people can kind of resonate pretty quickly with it. Striving behaviors, climb ladder, work all the time. Seeking is about gaining understanding, being more centered, learning, curiosity. And so for much of my academic career, I think it was safe to say I was a striver. And so back to your point, Jonathan, and the Chesterton quote, I love it, is that I believed that I needed to be neglectful to some extent to the family. I mean, I don't want to paint myself as a complete ogre. I wasn't. But, neglectful in some ways, not being fully present because I was chasing academic glory. And it was interesting because when as we were separating, going our separate ways, going to, because we know that the way that you divorce affects the way that you co-parent. So we want to do it right. So we're going to the therapist and I'm recounting, all of this. And I'm like talking about my behaviors and of writing and climbing. And, I was sponsored by brands and everything. So I was just boom, 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 boom. And my therapist, I still remember he paused and goes, let me push back on this for a moment. Because I thought I had to be like a total striver, neglectful in order to be successful. And this is his language, so hopefully it's okay on your podcast, but this is my therapist. He goes, Frank, let me push back on a moment. The reason why you're successful is not because you're an asshole. It's because you're smart and you work hard. That was an epiphany moment for me. And all of a sudden, wait, I don't have to be chasing that gigantic purpose to have a rich and full life. And it completely changed my life. And
I gave you a little wonder moment right there for you.
It was a wonder moment. Yeah, it was an awe, like, oh, I had never, and it's embarrassing. I do this for a living. I coach leaders around unproductive thinking and behavior patterns. We all need our doctors, right?
Yeah.
And so,
absolutely.
I look back on that experience and that has deeply affected me in very positive ways on how to be a leader. And it brings in that authenticity. I'm perfectly okay talking about it. Because nobody's going to judge, right?
Yeah, and the people that do, they've got their own issues they need to work on.
That's exactly correct. Yeah.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
Majority of the audience is going to be like, "Oh, finally, somebody's telling the truth." It's like
exactly. It sucks.
Right. Yeah.
But
it's like I heard one. I don't remember if I learned this in a movie I was watching or what, but there's always like when you hear somebody they have a death in the family or something like that, and you never know what to say or something. And I think it was a movie I saw something one time. It's in the one character's, responding to the person who just said, yeah, my mom just died. And they said, man, that sucks. I bet you're just like pissed off and sad and angry all at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, instead of saying, "Oh, sorry for your loss," like
Right.
it doesn't really say anything or mean anything, but to like just be willing to say that sucks.
Yeah, that blows. Yeah. So yeah, I love that you said, because you're. It sounds like you're already attuned to this, but to the listener, or to the people looking at or listening to this podcast, you know, anytime we deflect a ray from pain gets us into dangerous territory. You know, oh, my daughter just passed away, but man, I'm going to see her in heaven. Well, that's good if that gives you comfort, but other people may not believe that. And ignoring the reality of the pain in the present stunts our psychological and emotional growth. And it's interesting that there's 3 guys on this podcast talking about this stuff, because years ago, nobody would be talking about this. Nope. And I do think kind of the Brene Brown era ushered in kind of a willingness to talk about vulnerability. And then John Kabat-Zinn's work on getting out of your head and into your life. I just think for all the craziness we see in politics right now, I'm deeply optimistic of the move and the march of humanity. Is like, those are remnants of stuff that at some point, you know, just is not sustainable. You can't sustain hate in the long run. And so developing kind of this embracing that part of being a human being is the ups and the lows. And that's, you know, deeply encouraging to know that I'm not alone.
Yeah. Well, you're starting to see it in, you know, in films and everything that we read, like, you know, the vulnerabilities, even of our heroes. You know, people have vulnerabilities and weaknesses, and, you know,
it's not the 1950s hero anymore. It's much more layered.
And don't you,
George Reeve, Superman, you know.
If you ever go back and watch those movies, isn't it kind of cringe now, as the kids would say?
It really is.
Watching the
it's so two-dimensional. It feels like so one-dimensional. You know, you watch some of these old shows.
My Three Sons, Wally and the Beeve. You know, that kind of stuff. Yeah, and now on the other side, you know, then you went too far the other way with Married with Children, and now I think it's come back, kind of balanced out a little bit. You know,
but you know, you read, like, I mean, seriously, I mean, these people that were, I mean, they were performing these roles, presenting, like, I think of, like, because I was recently just reading an article about, you guys remember the George Reeve Superman back in the 60s. This guy was like, I mean, he was every kid's hero. I remember it vaguely as a kid watching some of the old, you know, there were reruns back in the day, but, you know, this guy, you read about his personal life, it was a disaster. You know, he was like, you know, portraying somebody that was completely different than himself. You know, his whole world was falling apart, you know, as a, you know, in reality, but he was portraying someone who had no vulnerabilities whatsoever. I find that pretty ironic.
As though, it's this idealized version of masculinity that, you know, as a researcher, when I see people men asserting their masculinity. Anyway, first off, if you have to talk about it, you ain't got it.
Right. Yeah.
And, you know, I see it as weakness. I mean, it's very clear that, you know, you need to assert something. It's because you have a gap.
Yeah.
You know, you're actually weak. I think, when we were talking about the 1950s, want me to share a little metaphor with you guys? This is one of these kind of things.
Yeah.
Okay. So we think about John Wayne. This is a classic therapeutic metaphor. It's used by therapists. And it's something really useful. And maybe folks listening to this is something they can do, and we can still do. Is so you imagine John Wayne, right? John Wayne is this incredibly masculine guy. And so these are the old movies. So obviously we wouldn't use this kind of language now, but he's got to get to the top of a mountain. But in between him and the top of the mountain are a bunch of guys with bows and arrows. But he's John Wayne, so he's got his 2 6-shooters out. Bam, bam, bam. But he's getting hit with arrows. But he's John Wayne, so he breaks it off. Boom, boom, boom. Gets to the top after a hard-fought battle, reloads. He's been hit 10 or 12 times, so he's broken them off. But he's John Wayne. He don't die. So he comes down off the mountain. They all kind of heal up. He sidles into the bar, puts it, with the door coming open, sits down and goes, oh, geez, God, that hurt. We all take through our lives wounds that are not fatal, but they impact us in a variety of ways. And we get in a situation and somebody pokes that wound, we respond. And so historically, or I said traditionally, men just, really anybody, but we're all guys on here, just kind of suck it up. But we know that suck it up actually leads to really negative behavioral outcomes later in life.
Yeah.
So if we can't process that woundedness, then all of a sudden we're going to, somebody is going to come along and poke a wound.
Yeah.
I poke my partner's wound all the time, and we have conversations about it. And she pokes my wounds. That feeling of inadequacy for me, the feeling like I don't belong. And so I tend to be sensitive to criticism. And so she's had to learn how to give me feedback that lands well, that's true, but also honors my wimpiness in that area. And then for her, coming from her background, which was really crazy, I have to be very sensitive and tender with her during particular times. And so back to your point, Jonathan, you said, I do think we're seeing the tide changing. There's a pretty substantial pushback to the feminization, which is a stupid word, of society. If all that means is we talk about emotion, I'm perfectly fine with that.
Yeah.
But I do think a lot of us are becoming more and more comfortable and hopefully conversant with the language.
Yeah.
Emotional health.
Yeah,
and if you're
Sean
not,
Sean and I both had, what is it, the Army? What were you told? Suck it up and drive on.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
That was our motto.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Embrace the suck.
Embrace the suck.
Dude, I'm all about that for cycling and,
absolutely. There's a point. Yeah. There's a place for that for sure.
Yeah. But when you don't let that out in some safe, healthy environment, that's why we have midlife crises, because it's going to come out at some point.
It is going to come out
in some behavior, in some disease, in some, the body will find a way to process it,
Yep.
and
100%.
It's,
so it's better to process.
It's usually not pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's right. It is not pretty. It's ugly.
Yeah. So, man, we got a long way from our main topic, but it's a good conversation.
When you have a psychologist on the call, we're going to talk about this stuff, right?
But I mean, I think this is all important too, because this is all stuff that your audience, whether it's in writing, whether it's a one-on-one sales conversation, whether it's in front of 5,000 people, it's all stuff they're going through and battling with, and that's in the backs of their minds or the front of their mind, depending on where they are. And you have to understand that if you're going to put together a talk like what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Meet them where they are.
And I love that you said that, because one of the things, and I can kind of see it sometimes in people's crestfallen face, they want to have like the top 10 tips and tricks. In the Mini Frank app, if you ask it, what are the top 10 best tips on speaking? It'll say, I'm sorry, that's not why I'm here. I'm here. So the developers have created it to give you pointed feedback if you try to deviate from the hard work.
Okay. So it's like, nope, that's not going to work.
It's not going to work. And so, when folks ask me that question, how do you become a good public speaker? The first thing I say is the first step is you have to know yourself. Mm-hmm. I think there's still videos out there on the internet of me speaking early on. And I'm like, I didn't know myself. So I came across as stiff, and because you're seeing Tony Robbins, you're seeing these guys, you're seeing that, and you're like, who am I? I haven't found my voice yet. And so I feel pretty comfortable in my voice now, even though I'm not going to be a Tony Robbins guy. I'm not like that. That's not my brand. Right. I'm not super polished. I'll say, I'm the worst nightmare for a Toastmasters group. Mm-hmm. I just gave a keynote at Toastmasters and they're like, oh my gosh. Yeah, because you're taught to see the world through That's all you're going to see in the world is You can still have an effective talk.
Yeah.
Years ago, I was on the, college speaking circuit, if you want to call it that. And I was given so they would hire me to do kickoffs and ends of the school year. And I still remember I was out of university out in the West, not saying the name of it, but a big, D1 school. And so I do the freshman kickoff. There's a couple thousand kids in this, in the gym or arena or whatever, beach balls, all the rest. And so by the end of the talk, everybody was so energized and excited, and you could just feel the energy, and you're like, man, I love doing this. If I hadn't experienced it, I would think I would be lying, but I did experience it. I tell this story a lot on how not to give feedback. So as the kids are kind of filtering out and everything, I'm still up on the riser and I see this woman kind of beelining it towards me with a very assertive beeline posture or stiff posture. And she comes up and she asks the one question you never ask because it only means one thing. So how do you think that went? That's what she asked me. Literally, I've never met her. I've never seen her. She's like, so how do you think that went? I'm like, well, they seem to have liked it. She literally went into like I don't know, I'm going to say 6-point. It's been so long ago, but like a 6-point critique of how bad of a public speaker I am. I'm like, okay, like, what do I do with that? I thanked her and everything. Anyways, I got back to my hotel room, Googled, and she's the head of the communications department.
Oh.
And you know exactly why she did it. She's like, you know how much they paid this guy to come? They paid him $10,000 to come give this talk, and he doesn't follow the freaking book.
Oh, yeah. You got to follow. Yeah, you got to do the formula, right?
Find your voice.
Yeah.
Right? Find your voice. Find what's authentic to you.
Right.
Yeah. Go get a speech coach if you do a ton of ums or whatever. Find your voice.
Well, it's like you said earlier, Pulp Fiction. I don't think Quentin Tarantino, followed a formula when it came out with that one, because it was like, I remember first seeing that movie. It was like, oh crap, this is crazy.
You're like, what did I even just see?
Yeah. Because it was like, it didn't start, it wasn't from start to finish. It was like, first of all, it's like, I mean, it's a crazy movie, but then you're starting at different parts of the movie. Like, it's like, you really have to see that movie 2 or 3 times to really put it all together. But it's a fantastic film. I mean, it's probably, I would think that's probably one of his best films ever.
Well, I think, I much preferred it over Reservoir Dogs.
Yeah.
I'm not a cinema expert, but I listen to enough commentary, and that is seen as one of those pivotal movies in shifting cinema.
Oh, just absolutely. No doubt.
Non-linear.
Yeah.
But you've got to be sure, but they land the plane, and that's my delivery method I call land.
Mm-hmm.
And I violated it the other day, but I was down in Orlando speaking to a bunch of veterinarians. And I always like to tell a story about my sister because it's really inspiring. She doesn't let me tell the story, but I do it when she's not around. Mm-hmm. Incredibly inspiring. She ran a big vet unit at a vet hospital in Colorado. Super high stress, high visibility job. She was an athlete. All of my, me and her, my brother, all athletes, had an unexpected stroke at 59. Was ready to take her life just because not being able to handle the discomfort. And she's sitting in her truck, heaving. And she's like, either I'm going to kill myself or I'm going to do something about it. And she ended up getting a 2nd-degree black belt. That's pretty freaking amazing. That's a great story.
Wow. Yeah.
I didn't finish the story. And so when I question and answer, half the audience is like, how did the story end? You got to make sure you land the plane.
Sure. Right.
And even I will mess it up, and that's okay. I'm just a human, but the land came from when I had this amazing pastor when I was in Houston. And he's one of these guys that will put you in really uncomfortable situations, but not let you flame out, if that makes sense. So one weekend we were taking all the kids up to, what's that little teeny river outside of Austin? It's the shortest river in Austin. Como River. I can't remember.
I don't know.
So we were taking the kids up there, had for a weekend retreat, had a really cool house and everything. And he's like, so do you want to do like the devotional at night? And I'm like, awesome. Yeah, sure. I'll do that. Where does my brain go? Everything's got to be perfect. Everything's referenced. It's like a little mini sermon and everything. Yeah. So the kids are out on the river all day long, playing in the heat, doing all the crazy stuff. They come back, have a big meal, and then they have to sit down, and I launch into this like little mini sermon.
Little dissertation.
Exactly. Literally a high school girl in the front row fell out of her seat asleep.
Oh, no.
So we end, and Dennis is the pastor's name. He goes, so how do you think that went? He asked that same question. He goes, Frank, just remember, keep it simple, stupid, and land the plane. And so once you develop the talk using the method, then the way to deliver it is how can I continually simplify the message, getting rid of all of the excess words, the excess stories. Everything needs to, so coming back to because I know we kind of departed, everything needs to come back to be in the service of your central hypothesis. If you have extraneous stories, that just becomes self-indulgent. So everything needs to be super disciplined. Now, you can still have fun. You can do non sequiturs. I tend to do non sequiturs, but I'm keeping in my long-term memory, whatever it is, I know exactly where the talk is going. And I'm not puffing myself up. I'm just saying I've done it enough.
Yeah.
If you don't know where the talk is going and you haven't, and I don't really rehearse talks much anymore.
Right.
I would recommend for people starting out to rehearse and then take a page out of the Bon Jovi playbook. I just love Bon Jovi from a business perspective because it's a company.
Oh yeah.
By him, he pays a salary, so they minimize all the hoopla that often goes around with rock bands. But what they do is they beta test their music in smaller venues. So you do that before you get into an arena, and it's like, oh, whoa, that didn't work. And so start, just raise your hand to speak at, I don't know, again, your church or a community group where the bar is really low. Right. Yeah. And that you can, I started writing, I didn't start writing at the Huffington Post. I'm like, I am a terrible writer. I write like an academic. So I raised my hand and I'm like, hey, I went to the local Chamber of Commerce. And I'm like, y'all have like this monthly insert. Could I write like a leadership column for you guys? They're like, yeah, free content. And so I learned how to write for a public audience there. The very first manuscript I submitted to the Huffington Post, the editor's like, dude, this is not going to work. And I'm like, so don't assume that I'm where I'm at now without all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Because you are going to flame out. So just start, keep it simple, stupid, have a couple of great stories, know what's interesting to an audience, know what your main point is. If you don't have a main point, if you can't make it succinct within one sentence, you don't have a talk.
Yeah. Yeah.
Otherwise, you're going to be like this.
I love that. A thesis or big idea, as we say in copywriting, for your talk. That's a good point. Something you can kind of anchor to and come back to if you do wander, all that kind of stuff. So it's good.
Yeah. It becomes an anchor.
Awareness, wonder, engagement.
Yes.
Awe.
Yep.
And well, Frank, this has been a good conversation, but I know you've got a wall to climb, so we don't want to keep you from that.
That's right.
Hopefully your beer is metabolized, so you're not falling off the wall.
It has.
So you'll be good. So where can people learn more about you and what you're up to right now? What's the best?
Yeah. So you go to frankniles.com. We are updating the website as we speak.
When is this new app that you are referring to? When is it?
Man, I was just on the phone with Dean McKenna. He's the one designing the app. He's a former CHRO and retired and said, hey, I'm going to teach myself how to code. I think that is like a testament to all of us, isn't it? Like never stop coding. But he's got a team behind him and everything.
Yeah.
Our goal is the next month or so.
Okay.
But it needs to be rolled out at the same time as the training. So this will be, so basically our envision right now is we will roll out a training or a workshop where it'll be, to begin with, it'll be in person. Because that's the best way to learn and the best way to get feedback. There will be a virtual component or a product later on.
Sure.
And I'm a big believer in starting small, iterating from there. So you'll have a workshop where you will learn the method. You'll be able to start working on a talk. Then you'll come back for a second workshop, for a second session. That could be the next day or it could be a week later. Probably do them on Saturdays. And then you're going to have an opportunity to deliver it. Before you even get in the workshops, we're going to deploy the app so you can start playing with it. And the cool thing is the app will be constantly learning and being updated. So it'll be an added benefit to you, a real small monthly fee that you get this in perpetuity. And it's constantly being updated with new content and new learnings. But the way, because probably in the minds of some of your listeners, it's like, well, how is this different than chat or Claude? It's curated.
Yep.
So in terms of the development, pardon?
I like to say when people ask that kind of question about AI, it's got constraints. That's what makes it work.
It's got constraints. Yeah. So if you ask about, well, it does have a bunch of therapeutic models in there, but it's not going to give you, it's not going to pontificate on monetary and, fiscal policy, because that's not what it's there for.
Yeah.
And so it's tightly bounded. And because it's not primarily an information source, you don't get hallucination problems because it's really a feedback partner. It does have points of view and it will brainstorm with you, but and so for a small monthly fee, you'll be able to have this and it'll be updated regularly. It'll be refreshed. It'll be evergreen going forward, and just really exciting to see this as
that's very cool.
To disrupt the market a bit.
Keep us posted on that. We'd love to.
I will. And I'll talk.
I signed up for your email so you can stay informed that way.
I'll talk to the team and we'll see if we can get you 2 gentlemen access. You can start playing with them.
Be great.
Sounds
Beta
great.
Test that.
Yeah. And then for your corporate listeners, you can find me on LinkedIn.
Okay. Oh, for sure.
Easily findable. And then if you want to see what I've written and all the other crazy stuff, just Google me. I'm kind of everywhere.
Just Google
we'll post some links. Yeah, just Google me in the terms of Mr. Signetti.
Yes.
But I'm not fancy. I just like doing fun things.
Yeah, that's right.
No, this has been a wonderful conversation.
No, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for spending some time with us. Frank will be posting links on our show page so our listeners can find out more. And again, keep us posted. I'll sign up too so we get some updates on your app. That sounds pretty interesting.
So any questions about hopefully I answered your questions and I didn't go step by step, but
no,
good.
We like to go we like to go all over the place. So that's good. That's the way we do it.
Good. If nothing else, hopefully to start encouraging everybody who's listening to start looking for those moments around them that are mind-blowing, and then start assembling a file in a sense of stories and experiences that they can draw upon when talking to people.
Yeah. We talked about that before many times. There's a certain intrigue in the mundane of life 100%. That people love. I don't care what you're doing, whether it's eating, taking out the trash. There's something like we get sucked into the mundane of everybody's life out there.
Works for Seinfeld.
It works.
Doesn't it? Don't you think? I hate that kind of a question, but it sounds like an attorney question. But don't you think that at some point when I think about that, it just means like we're human. Like all of us have taken out trash.
Yeah.
All of us have changed diapers.
Yep.
Like we know it. There's it connects us. Human beings have 3 fundamental needs for autonomy, competence, and connectedness. That's well researched across the globe. autonomy, competence, and connectedness, making self-initiated decisions, getting better at something that's meaningful to us, and then giving and receiving support. And I think that mundane kind of stuff goes, man, yeah
for sure.
We're all on this team together.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We all do those things, but none of us want to admit it out loud.
That's right. You know, we want to strive for something great, but yet it's funny that people are interested in the mundane, you know.
Yeah,
I think that's the world we all live in. So
it's funny because I grew up in Southern California, and the neighborhood I grew up in had a lot of celebrities. And so you would see like Michael Landon, you'd see other people like them walking just like every other normal human being down the sidewalk.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're like, they put their shoes on the same way.
Absolutely. Yeah, they don't levitate. I thought they levitated.
No, they do not.
So,
Frank, thanks so much, man. It's been a pleasure. We're going to put you in the green room. Sean and I are going to close out the show, and hang tight if you would for about 30 seconds or so, and we'll chat with you on the back end.
Okay, that'd be great.